Jon Jones' legacy is overrated. That's what this video is going to be about today. I'm tired of the whole undefeated narrative. I'm tired of Jon Jones doing steroids and being able to get away with it. But when TJ Dillashaw does steroids, his career's over. And then we have him openly ducking Tom Aspinall. And people are calling this guy the GOAT. Listen, I just made a top 10 UFC GOATs, and I had him on the top of that list. And honestly, going forward, after rethinking some things and maybe being a casual and a little bit delusional, I might not have Jon Jones at the top of my GOAT list anymore. And in this video, I'm going to take a big steamy dump all over Jon Jones because it's no secret I don't like Jon Jones. I think he's a terrible person that beats his wife, cheats, uses steroids, and does everything in between, hits pregnant women, like you name it. The guy's done it all. And yeah, I'm just not a fan of Jon Jones. I don't see how any human with a moral compass could be a fan of Jon Jones. So in this video, I'm going to start off by glazing Jon Jones a little bit, and then we're going to get into the meat and potatoes and kind of go over why his legacy is overrated and why he's pretty much a scumbag. So let's get right into it. Let's look at some of his stats. We're looking at his UFC record, 21-1 overall in the UFC, 27-1 overall in MMA, with 10 knockouts, 10 submissions, 10 decisions. Good variety there. I'll give him that. 11 title defenses total. Consecutive title defenses at 8. Because remember, he never lost the belt. He was stripped because, Jon Jones doing Jon Jones things. A 2-time light heavyweight champ, again, only because he lost it because he got stripped. Became the interim light heavyweight champ whenever he beat OSP. And then went up to heavyweight after ducking Francis for 3 years to fight Cyril Gane. And he won that belt. He's also the youngest champion at 23 years old. So yeah, Jon Jones, he has some solid accomplishments, but there is a lot to pick and prod at. There's a lot to criticize. Let me just say that. So let's get into the next slide where I'm going to show you guys all the guys he beat and the way he beat them. So here's a picture of all the fighters Jon Jones has beat. Starting off, he won a decision in his UFC debut against Andre Gusmao. Couldn't even tell you who that is. A decision against Stephan Bonner, solid win. Sub Jake O'Brien, kind of a nobody. A DQ loss versus Matt Hamill. Fair enough, he was destroying Matt Hamill. Should have got that win. Stupid rule. Either way, DQ lost. The only loss on his record. But when I'm done with this video, you will know that he has a loss on his record, no matter if it's the Matt Hamill loss or another loss. TKO win versus Brandon Vera. TKO win versus Vladimir Matyashenko. If you look at the top, he's actually the second to last fighter with the blue shorts at the top. That guy literally looks like a cab driver. So Jon Jones was beating cab drivers, and people claim he was beating top tier competition, dude. Submission win versus Ryan Bader. Fair enough, Ryan Bader was undefeated. A TKO versus Shogun to win the belt. Okay, good win. Submitted Rampage Jackson. Submitted Lyoto Machida. Won a decision against Rashad Evans. Submitted Vitor Belfort. TKO against Chael Sonnen. And then he kind of turns into a decision fighter after the Chael Sonnen fight. Arguably loses a razor-close decision to Alexander Gustafsson. A lot of people think he won. I'm not sure. I think he could have scored that fight a draw, but a win for Jones nonetheless. Dominates Glover Teixeira. Comfortably beats Daniel Cormier. Looks flat and slow and off against Ovince St. Preux. One of his worst performances. Knocks out Daniel Cormier, but it's turned into a no contest because he took steroids. Comes back to face Alexander Gustafsson at UFC 232 a week before the fight. The entire event has to be moved because Jon Jones has pulsing picograms in his system. So an entire fight card with other fighters on it have to go to California and pay higher taxes because Jon Jones can't keep his system clean. Incredible. Then he wins a decision against Anthony Smith. First of all, that's embarrassing. Anthony Smith is one of the worst light heavyweights on the roster. He's not talented and he's not dangerous. I know Anthony Smith is, oh man, he has so many finishes, he's dangerous. No, Anthony Smith is not dangerous. Just look at Anthony Smith in like his last 10 fights. Like, what is he doing? Either way, a decision against a one-legged Thiago Santos, who he nearly lost to. That was a split decision that some people thought he lost. I thought he won, but a one-legged fighter, and you're taking him to a decision. And then he 110% loses to Dominic Reyes. And then he goes up to heavyweight after 3 years off and gets a submission win over Cyril Gane. Incredible how the second Cyril Gane, Cyril Gane is the guy he has to face at heavyweight. He's willing to go up right away. But when it's Francis Ngannou, I want $20 million. I don't want to fight Ngannou. But as soon as Ngannou leaves the UFC, he's scared. He's running. It's amazing how Jon Jones spins the narratives, boys. But yeah, this is his fight results. In every single fight he's had in the UFC, It's solid, but I do think it's a bit overrated. And let me explain why. Let's go into the next slide for this video. We got his inactivity. So this is kind of a curveball, but let's look at the inactivity of Jon Jones and why. January 3rd, 2015 to April 23rd of 2016, he has a year and 3 months off. After beating Daniel Cormier, he actually tested positive for cocaine, and he had the hit and run that he hit that pregnant woman. And so he had all this time off, right? After hitting the pregnant woman, he takes an entire year and 3 months off, comes back on April 23rd of 2016, and that's when he fought Ovid St. Preux, I believe. And yeah, he looked extremely flat against Ovid St. Preux. And then he takes another year and 3 months off because I probably serving a secret USADA suspension that the UFC did not want us to know about. Either way, 1 year and 3 months off, comes back July 29th of 2017 at UFC 217 to face Daniel Cormier. Gets a head kick TKO finish. What do you know? Test positive for Turinabol after that fight. Incredible stuff by Jon Jones. He's out again another year and 5 months. Comes back in December of 2018 to face Gustafsson in the rematch. And he finishes Gustafsson. Then he takes, fair enough, he has a couple title defenses after Gustafsson. Then he takes another 3 years off between February 8th and March 4th of 2023. Takes another 3 years off, in my opinion, ducking Francis Ngannou, waiting for him to either leave or lose the belt and pray that he can fight somebody who's not as dangerous. Cyril Gane. You get it. So yeah, he's off another 3 years. Then March 4th, 2023 to his fight this weekend with Stipe. That's another year and 8 months. You add that up all together. Jon Jones, whether it be ducking opponents, whether it be beating women or doing steroids or anything in between, has not fought 8.5 years of his career, guys. 8.5 years. This guy spent being a scumbag. Fair enough. The last one was because he was injured, maybe, but either way, 8.5 years of this guy's career has been sabotaged by himself. And as you can see in the picture down below, he's been arrested a few times. I mean, this guy has done it all. I don't know what else Jon Jones needs to do in the eyes of the fans to get in their bad graces, because how people support this guy and call him the GOAT, including myself, by the way, because I am bewildered and befounded. Boys, what am I saying? Either way, how people call this guy like the GOAT, I really changed my tune on Jon Jones this week, just seeing his actions toward Tom Aspinall and the way he's gone about his whole end of his career. This is what's made me change the tune on Jon Jones being the GOAT of the sport. Now, I know you could make the same exact argument I'm making right now before this whole Tom Aspinall thing, but this, for me, solidifies it further. This guy ain't no GOAT. He's a duck. He's a damn chicken. I mean, look, he's literally I'll get to that. I'll get to that in a second. But yeah, the inactivity of Jon Jones, we're looking at 8.5 years inactive. That in itself is insane. Dude spent nearly a decade of his career not fighting because he was too busy, as Daniel Cormier said, sandblasting prostitutes and just beating on women and doing steroids. That's just what it came down to. Let's get on to the next slide. The steroid use. 2016, after UFC, he's scheduled in the main event in UFC 200 to face Daniel Cormier. This is one of the most anticipated rematches, and everybody's looking forward to it. Daniel Cormier trained his ass off, ready to come and fight Jon Jones hard in a rematch where he has like a 12-inch reach disadvantage. Jon Jones literally has every advantage in the world against Daniel Cormier. And what does Jon Jones do right before the fight? He tests positive for clomiphene and letrozole. Now these, from what I know, are two steroids that like masked that you took steroid. They're not steroids. They're like PEDs, performance enhancing drugs they mask PEDs. So if you take PEDs, you take clomiphene and letrozole, and it's supposed to like mask that you did PEDs. Somebody fact check me in the comments. That might not be right. I'm not, what's his name? I'm not more plates, more dates. I'm not too up on this stuff, but I know that in some way it can mask steroids. And then he tested positive in 2017 for Turinabol after beating Daniel Cormier at UFC 217. So he comes back. He has a tough fight against Daniel Cormier in the rematch, to be honest. Daniel Cormier was holding his own, but in the second round, he got head kicked. Jon Jones on top of the world, and what do you know? The guy tests positive again. Now, this guy blatantly tested positive twice. If I'm not mistaken, I thought the rules, and correct me if I'm wrong, guys, if you test once, isn't it supposed to be like a 1 year suspension, and then the second time it's supposed to be like 2 years or 4 years? No, I think it's 2 years for the second offense, but he got his sentence reduced for the Turinabol whenever he apparently told on other fighters that were taking steroids. So Jon Jones turned into a snitch and outed other fighters, so he can shorten his sentence for doing steroids. And there's also another story of Jon Jones hiding under the octagon at his gym for like 6 hours, hiding from drug testers, if you guys don't know. So there's that. But like I said about the steroid use, you have a guy like TJ Dillashaw, right? He openly admits to taking EPO when he's cutting down the flyweight. Fair enough. He cheated. He admitted it. At least he admitted it. Jon Jones has tried to maintain his innocence on this despite testing positive multiple times. He's delusional enough to try and gaslight people and tell them, I've never taken steroids. The test showed it was picograms. Like, John, how did the picograms get into your system? But like I said, you have a guy like TJ Dillashaw who admits to doing EPO. His entire career and legacy is destroyed. Fair enough, he cheated. But why not keep that same energy for Jon Jones? Why is that energy only put forth to TJ Dillashaw? TJ Dillashaw does steroids. He's cooked. Don't talk about him. He's a steroid cheat. Jon Jones does steroid. Oh, he's the GOAT, man. He's the GOAT. Jon Jones, he never did steroids. He beat everybody, dude. He was clean. Yeah, man. He just took a dick pill one day. Yeah. It's absurd. Keep that same energy for Jon Jones. You should not be in the GOAT conversation at all if you took steroids. And I know that's hypocritical of me to say, considering that I put this guy as my number one GOAT. But you know what? Screw that. I'm revoking that. Jon Jones ain't even on my GOAT list because this dude is a sham. Let's get into the next slide. As you can tell, guys, I'm not a big fan of Jon Jones. If you haven't noticed, let's just say that. Slide 5. Let's look at what maybe makes his legacy overrated, in my opinion. The fight against Ovince St. Preux. This guy's supposed to be a world beater. He looked like complete garbage. He looked like a D-level fighter against Ovince St. Preux. And people are going to clap back and say, oh, dude, even in his worst, whenever he fought OSP, he still dominated him. So that's how you know he's the GOAT. Even whenever he fights bad, he's still 50-45 as a guy. Yeah, you know what I think? I think whenever he fought OSP, he was off the sauce, and it showed. That's what I think. Jon Jones was off the sauce whenever he fought OSP. He comes back, and it showed. He looked awful. If he fought Daniel Cormier like he fought OSP, I think Daniel Cormier would have knocked him out. Let me be honest. He could, and I can't stress this enough, he could not finish Thiago Santos on one leg. Thiago Santos literally tore every tendon and every ligament in his right or left leg. I don't remember. But he was literally hopping around the cage like a bunny, and Jon Jones nearly lost that fight to Thiago Santos on one leg. Imagine if Thiago Santos had both his legs. Jon Jones would have been handed his first professional defeat, or he wouldn't have because the judges would have probably gave him the decision. Then he could not finish Anthony Smith, who's arguably one of the worst light heavyweights on the roster. Like, I'm sorry, Anthony Smith's title shot run was not impressive. He beat a bunch of old washed-up veterans. He knocked out Rashad Evans, and I forgot who the other one was, but he knocked out a bunch of old washed-up legends. And then he fights Jon Jones, and Jon Jones literally fought Anthony Smith, a competitive first round, by the way. But the rest of the fight, fair enough. Jon Jones beat Anthony Smith pillow to post, but he couldn't finish him. It's a joke, dude. Anthony Smith is getting finished these days by B-level fighters, guys like Khalil Roundtree. Respect to Khalil Roundtree, but Jon Jones is the GOAT, right? Khalil Roundtree's finishing Anthony Smith, but Jon Jones can't, and people are going to say, oh, Anthony Smith was more in his prime. Either way, dude, it's Anthony Smith. You're regarded as the GOAT, Jon Jones, and you cannot finish Anthony Smith. That's not even the worst of it. Fair enough. Couldn't finish Anthony Smith. Also, he 100 million%, and I don't care what anybody says, he lost the fight to Dominic Reyes. Dominic Reyes won rounds 1, 2, and 3. Clear as day. Outstruck Jon Jones. Outworked him. Jon Jones won round 4 and 5. The judges unanimously gave it to Jon Jones. Whoever gave him round 3, 2, or 1, those are pre-written scorecards, and those judges were a sham. Now listen, if you look at these, like, Jon Jones has arguably lost 3 fights, legit. Like, he's arguably lost maybe 2. You could say that he definitely won the Thiago Santos fight, but there might be an argument that he lost, dude. But let's say he won the Thiago Santos fight. He 100% lost to Dominic Reyes, and there's a real argument that he lost to Alexander Gustafsson. And then he has a disqualification. So are we really looking at a Jon Jones as 27-3? And this whole undefeated narrative is just not true. I can bring you to a time, right? Dana White is going on a glazing tour, right? Right now, and in the last 6 months, Jon Jones is you put Jon Jones in a room with anyone in the world, Jon Jones walks out. Jon Jones is the pound for pound number 1 fighter in the world, even though he's only fought once in the last 4.5 years. That's besides the point. But I remember a time after Stipe Miocic fought Francis Ngannou in the rematch, right? Francis Ngannou KO Stipe Miocic. Dana White singing a different tune. He said, if I'm Jon Jones, I'm going down to middleweight. Oh, what do you know? Dana White, and I kid you not, Dana White went on record to say that he thought that Reyes won the fight against Jon Jones, and it was a robbery, and that his kids were going crazy about it. Yeah, because we know it was. But what does Dana do? Dana waits for Francis to go to the PFL and then he brands Jon Jones as the most dominant guy in the world, and that Francis ducked and never wanted to fight Jon Jones, and he was scared and all this, which is crazy because whenever Francis beat Stipe in the rematch, he was saying that Jon Jones should go back down to middleweight. So Dana switches his tune to whatever suits the company the best and makes Jon Jones look the best. Jon Jones must have some serious dirt on him. Either way, yeah, dude. Jon Jones arguably has 3 losses, like arguably. 1 loss for sure. 1,000,000% he has 1 loss against Dominic Reyes. And everyone knows it. There's not a single argument you can make to say he won that fight against Dominic Reyes. He was outpointed in rounds 1, 2, and 3. Simple put. Rounds 4 and 5 he won, but they were 10-9 rounds. They were not 10-8, so he lost the fight. He lost the belt. He was awarded a decision against Dominic Reyes, and he shouldn't have been. Then, after the Reyes fight, he takes 3 years off. Why? Oh, what do you know? Francis Ngannou is the heavyweight champ, and he takes 3 years off. Let's go to the last slide. And let's see. This is what really made me change my tune on Jon Jones' legacy this week, and kind of really made me put everything into perspective to really say that this guy's his legacy is overrated. It just is. Like Jon Jones, if anything else, let me talk about the ducking with Tom Aspinall, and then I'll go into a couple more points on why I think his legacy is overrated. Ducking Tom Aspinall 100% puts a stain on Jon Jones' legacy. Think about any combat goat of any sport, or just any sport in general. Imagine if they were still arguably in a good state in their career, maybe not the prime, but a good state in their career, and they were put up against another guy who could threaten them, and they were like, nah, I don't want to compete against this guy. I think I'm just going to ride off into the sunset or face a guy who's way less. That's what Jon Jones is doing right now. He doesn't want to face Tom Aspinall. Why? Because Tom Aspinall is actually well-rounded. He's actually 260 lean. He can actually grapple. He can actually wrestle. He's 6'5". No, Jon Jones is used to fighting overblown middleweights that he has like a 10-inch reach advantage over, that he can keep at range with oblique kicks and eye pokes. And when Jon Jones doesn't have that, what do you know against a Thiago Santos, against a Alexander Gustafsson, against a Dominic Reyes? He struggles. Jon Jones has always struggled with guys his size. That's no secret. Outside of Cyril Gane, who he was able to just out-grapple and take to the ground and submit, every time Jon Jones fought someone anywhere near his size, he struggled. He's always fought fighters smaller, like a Chael Sonnen, like a Lyoto Machida, like a Shogun. All these guys, they were arguably middleweights. These guys were tiny. And Jon Jones is 6'4" with an 84-inch reach, fighting these guys, and he's always been bigger. And people are going to say, oh, dude, you're just coping. You know, Jon Jones has the greatest resume. Like, you're just coping. These guys were legends. Yeah, they were legends. They were all champions. But, dude, they're overblown middleweights. They're not light heavyweights, and I will stand by that. And now he's going on record to say that he's going to fight Alex Pereira. He'll even be willing to vacate the UFC belt to fight Alex Pereira, but he won't fight Tom Aspinall. This has got to be like trolling at this point, because like, is he trying to like get everyone to just dislike him and call him a duck on purpose? I mean, fair enough, it's working, because yeah, he's openly, this has got to be the highest profile ducking in UFC history. The only one maybe that's worse is like Jermaine Durandamy ducking Chris Cyborg, but I think this is even worse. Like, this is so blatantly obvious. I think Jon Jones knows. I don't think Jon Jones is scared of Tom Aspinall either. I don't. Even though I want to say that, I don't think he is. I think he knows that Tom Aspinall will beat him, because he's always, and the reason I say that is because he's always pointing out how Tom Aspinall is young, and like he'd rather fight Alex Pereira, who's the same age as him. So he's admitting that Tom Aspinall's young, he's quick, he's fast, I'm the old guy. And if he would just come out and be honest and say that, maybe people would have more respect for Jon Jones. But no. Jon Jones, another thing I'll say is that I never understood why the UFC is willing to bend the knee backwards for this guy. Like, why is Dana White and the UFC so insistent on doing all this stuff for Jon Jones, giving him a fight against a 42-year-old Stipe instead of making him fight the interim champ? Since when does the UFC ever want anyone to retire undefeated? They want the guy to lose so that it can build the next guy up. All of a sudden, Jon Jones, who's been a PR nightmare, who's tested positive for cocaine and steroids, who's beat women, who's hit pregnant women in a car and left the scene, who's went to jail multiple times, just a cheater and a scumbag all around. Why is the UFC willing to bend backwards so much for this guy? Like, what kind of dirt does he have on the UFC? Because they have not done this for any fighter. What other fighter have they moved entire events for? Nobody. It's just insane to me, dude. We all know Tom Aspinall is the real heavyweight champ. After Jon Jones beats Stipe this weekend, because we all know that's what's going to happen, I need him to go in the crowd with the belt and lay it at Tom Aspinall's feet and said, here you go, daddy, because that's what needs to happen. Because Jon Jones, he's a walking duck at this point. Quack, quack, haha, it's so funny. But yeah, dude, this whole situation is stupid. It's annoying. Either way, I do think his legacy is overrated. I think Jon Jones beat a bunch of fat, overblown middleweights, and his legacy is given a lot more credit than it should because a lot of the guys he beat were former champions. But in reality, in my opinion, let me go to his wins. Really, out of all of his wins, his only like great wins, in my opinion, I'm sorry, but I'm going to put his great wins at Daniel Cormier, Glover Teixeira maybe, and maybe Rashad Evans and Vitor. Cyril Gahn, I don't even know if that's a great win. Andre Guzmão? No. Stephan Bonner? Rest in peace, but Stephan Bonner wasn't anything special. Dude, Jake O'Brien? Matt Hamill? Like, look at these fighters, dude. Ryan Bader was decent, but Ryan Bader was never anything special. Shogun? Dude, Shogun looks like he was always out of shape. Rampage? Like, I'm sorry, dude, but these fighters on this list, they don't impress me as much as they once did. And the more you look into Jon Jones' resume, the more you realize it's not as great as it all seems to be. Say what you want about me putting him as my number one GOAT, but like I said, him openly ducking Tom Aspinall this fight week has really opened my eyes. This dude's a duck. He's not a real champion. He's probably the most disgraceful and worst heavyweight champion in the history of the UFC. I mean, Josh Barnett, who was on steroids, was a better champion than Jon Jones at heavyweight. I mean, this guy is just holding up the division. If he wanted to fight Stipe, a 42-year-old retired firefighter, fine. Hand the belt over to Tom Aspinall and go fight Stipe. The belt doesn't need to be on the line. And yeah, he said he wants to fight Alex Pereira for the BMF belt. Like I said, dude, I can rant on this forever, but I'll leave it at this. In my opinion, Jon Jones' legacy is underrated. Jon Jones' legacy is overrated, and he doesn't deserve anything he has just because he's a complete scumbag, and anyone else in the UFC that did what he did would be blacklisted from the company and never be able to fight again due to all the steroids they've done. And yeah, I'll leave it at that. I will be rooting for Stipe this weekend. I hope he KOs Jon Jones stiff. That'd be the funniest thing I've ever seen in my entire life. But it's not going to happen. We're going to see Jones win and then duck Aspinall because that's what he does. But yeah, guys, I'm out. Enough of this rant. Peace.